the Vikings originated in what is now Denmark, Norway, and Sweden. Their homeland was predominantly rural, with very few cities. The vast majority made a meager living through agriculture or coastal fishing. Advances in naval technology in the 7th and 8th centuries led to the development of ships propelled not only by oars but also by sails. These sails were then added to vessels constructed with overlapping planks to create the drakkar, swift shallow draft boats capable of navigating coastal and inland waters and docking on beaches. Exactly what initially prompted bands of men to follow their local leaders, also known as jarls in Old Norse, across the North Sea, on these drakkars, is unclear. It may have been localized overpopulation, as land plots were subdivided to the point where families could barely survive. It could have been political instability, as local jarls fought for complete dominance. Or it could have been news brought home by traders of the wealth found in Western trading settlements. It was likely a combination of all three factors. However, in the year 793, the first raiding party reached the island of Lindisfarne on the northeast coast of England, and soon Viking bands reached Scotland in 794, Ireland in 795, and France in 799. Their victims did not refer to them as Vikings. That name became popular later, in the 11th century, possibly deriving from the word vik, which in Old Norse means bay or inlet. Instead, they were called Danes, short for Danes, but also Paganis, referring to pagans, or simply Normans, referring to men from the north. Initially, the attacks were small-scale, with a few boats filled with men who would return home once they had gathered enough plunder or if they encountered strong resistance. But starting from 850, they began to winter in southern England, Ireland, and along the River Seine in France, establishing bases from which they started to dominate inland areas. The attacks reached a climax in the second half of the 9th century. In Ireland, the Vikings established long forts, fortified ports, including in Dublin, from where they controlled much of the eastern side of the island. In France, they grew in strength as the divided Frankish kingdom suffered political fractures, and in 885, the Viking army besieged and nearly captured Paris. In Scotland, they established a county in the Orkney archipelago in the North Sea and invaded the Shetlands. In England, a massive Viking host, known as the Great Army, arrived in 865. Led by a pair of warrior brothers, Halfdan and Ivar the Boneless, they conquered the Anglo-Saxon kingdoms of England one by one. First, Northumbria, with its capital in York, was taken in 866, followed by East Anglia, and then the central English kingdom of Mercia. Finally, only Wessex, ruled by King Alfred, remained. Alfred, a devout reader of books, became king because his three older warrior brothers fell ill or died in previous Viking invasions. In early January 878, a section of the Great Army, led by Guthrum, crossed the border and caught Alfred by surprise at the royal estate in Chippenham. Alfred barely managed to escape and spent months hiding in the swamps of Somerset at Athelney. It seemed that the independence of Wessex and England as a whole could be coming to an end. But against all odds, Alfred rallied a new army, defeated the Vikings at Edington, and forced Guthrum to accept baptism as a Christian. For his triumph in saving his kingdom, he became the only native English ruler to earn the nickname the Great. For 80 years, England was divided between the lands controlled by the kings of Wessex in the south and southwest, and an area controlled by the Vikings in the Midlands and the north. The Viking kings of this era ruled this region until the last of them, Erik Bloodaxe, was expelled and killed in 954, and the kings of Wessex became the rulers of a united England. Nonetheless, Viking customs, especially Danish, persisted in this region for a long time, and traces of Scandinavian DNA can still be found in an area that was known for centuries as the Danelaw, where Danish laws held dominance over Anglo-Saxon laws. In the mid-11th century, united kingdoms began to form in Denmark, Norway, and Sweden, and the attacks finally began to diminish. However, in the early 11th century, there was a final explosion of activity when royal-sponsored expeditions managed to conquer England once again and place Danish kings on the throne, most notably King Canute the Great, who established his empire in England, Denmark, and Norway. The Vikings remained in control of large parts of Scotland, especially Orkney, an area around Dublin, and Normandy in France, where in 911 King Charles the Simple granted lands to a Norwegian leader named Rollo, the ancestor of William the Conqueror. They also controlled significant portions of Ukraine and Russia, where Swedish Vikings conquered in the 9th century and established states based in Novgorod and Kiev. The Vikings were led by a series of kings, princes, and warriors known for their conquests and leadership skills. Some of their most notable leaders were Ragnar Lothbrok, one of the most renowned Viking kings. Ragnar is celebrated for his conquests and prowess in warfare. He is considered one of the first Vikings to invade England. Rollo, the first Count of Normandy. Rollo is known for establishing the County of Normandy in France. Harold Sigurdsson, later known as Harald Hardrada, as the King of Norway. Harold is renowned for his military conquests, including the invasion of England, where he was considered by some as the last Viking warrior in history. Ivar the Boneless, son of Ragnar Lothbrok, known for his military cunning. Ivar is one of the most notable figures in Viking history. Leif Erikson, one of the earliest European explorers to reach North America. Eric the Red. Eric is known for founding the colony in Greenland and being the father of Leif Erikson. Bjorn Ironside, son of Ragnar Lothbrok. Bjorn is renowned for his warlike conquests and leading expeditions to the Mediterranean. Knut the Great, also known as Canute, he ruled over Denmark, Norway, and southern England. He was one of the most influential and important Viking kings in European history, who, despite ruling with an iron fist, left a lasting legacy as a fair and successful ruler. Harald Fairhair united many of the Viking leaders, called Jarls, under his governance. These are just a few of the most notable Viking kings, princes, and warriors who have left their mark in history through their conquests and leadership skills. They are remembered as legends in Scandinavian culture and continue to inspire interest and fascination. Soon, we will have videos on the channel discussing each of these remarkable Norse figures. Christianity arrived later in Scandinavian Viking societies compared to many other parts of Europe. While the kings of France embraced Christianity in the early 6th century and the Anglo-Saxon kings of England largely adopted it in the 7th century, Christian missionaries only began to appear in southern Scandinavia in the 9th century and made limited progress until Harald Bluetooth of Denmark accepted baptism around the year 960. Harald became a Christian following a typical Viking event, a drunken debate around the feast table about who was more powerful, Odin and Thor or the new Christian god and his son. Iceland remained staunchly pagan, loyal to ancient gods such as Odin, the All-Father, a one-eyed god who sacrificed his other eye in exchange for knowledge of the runes, and Thor, the god of thunder, with his mighty hammer Mjolnir, which was especially popular among warriors. For a Viking, what are the two most desired things in the afterlife in Valhalla, the Hall of Fallen Warriors? Feasting and fighting, of course. If chosen to die by the mythical Valkyries, a Norse warrior longed to be received by the god Odin in Valhalla, a magnificent hall with a thatched roof, golden shields, spear-like beams, and so vast that 540 doors lined its walls. The honored dead, known as Einreinjar, spent their days honing their battle skills, fighting against each other in preparation for Ragnarok, the end of the world, and then, every night, their wounds were magically healed, and they feasted as only Vikings could feast. Their drinking horns never ran dry, thanks to Hydron, a goat on the roof of Valhalla, who ate from a special tree and produced the finest meat. And there was always enough meat, as the boar called Sarinir would come back to life after each slaughter, ready to be cooked once again. To join the Einreinjar, a Viking had to die in battle, and even then, they had only a 50% chance. The half that didn't choose to go to Valhalla instead went to the field of the goddess Freya, so they could provide company to the women who died as maidens. As for the old or sick, they went to an underworld called Hell. But it wasn't as bad as the name suggests, although there was a special place of misery reserved for murderers, adulterers, and oath-breakers, where a giant dragon gnawed on their corpses. It is traditionally said that the era of Viking raids and plunder, which began in Britain with the raid on Lindisfarne in 793 AD, came to an end with the failure of Harald Hardrada's invasion in 1066. However, Viking influence spread from the Middle East to North America and could not be undone by a single battle defeat. The Viking legacy to humanity encompasses their prowess as navigators and adventurers, as well as their influence on the culture and language of Scandinavia and other regions where the Vikings left their mark. Additionally, the Vikings are renowned for their art and architecture, including intricate runes and symbols, as well as the construction of ships, weapons, and metal utensils. In summary, the history of the Vikings is rich and diverse, and their inhabitants have left a lasting mark on the history of Europe, North America, and beyond. Their achievements, religion, way of life, and legacy to humanity are significant elements of their history and culture. The Vikings are an important and fascinating part of human history, and their legacy continues to be studied and celebrated worldwide. Dear friends, this concludes another video from the Eternia History channel, providing an overview of the fascinating Viking culture with its distinctive characteristics. In the future, we will bring you more content about Viking culture and its ramifications. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing to our channel, as we are just getting started and will bring you many more captivating stories about ancient and modern cultures. Also, don't forget to like and share this video with your friends. Thank you for your attention and support, and we'll see you in the next video, okay?